The Deep Space Radar Station on Europa lit up with multiple alerts. The night shift operator sat up straight, his coffee forgotten as he stared at the screen. 12 unknown objects had just appeared at the edge of the solar system, moving in perfect formation. "Control, this is Europa Station," he spoke into his comm. "We have multiple contacts. They're not following any known flight paths." In the United Earth Defense Force headquarters beneath Mount Fuji, Admiral James Walker received the alert within seconds. He stood in the command center, watching as holographic displays showed the unknown vessel's positions. Years of training had prepared humanity for this moment. First contact with an alien civilization. "Show me their approach vector," he ordered. The room's lighting dimmed as a larger hologram appeared, displaying the solar system. The 12 dots of light moved slowly but purposefully toward the inner planets. "Sir, they're maintaining perfect formation. These aren't natural objects," reported his second-in-command, Captain Lisa Brown. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel. "Our quantum sensors indicate advanced propulsion systems. Definitely artificial." Walker nodded. Humanity had spent the last 200 years preparing for this moment. After surviving world wars, climate disasters, and near-extinction events, the people of Earth had finally united. They had built defenses that turned the entire solar system into a fortress. "Deploy the sensor nets," Walker commanded, "but keep our defense grid in silent mode. Let's see what they do first." Throughout the solar system, invisible quantum sensors activated. These sensors, hidden on asteroids and moons, could track a coffee cup from Pluto to Mercury, but the visitors wouldn't know they were being watched. The alien ships slowed as they passed Neptune's orbit. Their formation shifted, spreading out in a pattern that military analysts would recognize, a standard search formation. "They're looking for something," Captain Brown observed, "probably trying to find our observation posts." Walker smiled slightly. They wouldn't find anything. Earth's technology had advanced far beyond visible installations. Their entire defense network existed in quantum space, impossible to detect until activated. The first transmission arrived 3 hours later. It came on all frequencies, broadcast in over 1,000 different languages. The message appeared on screens throughout the command center. "Greetings, inhabitants of the third planet. We are representatives of the Galactic Empire, bringing civilization and protection to all worthy species. Your solar system lies within our expansion zone. We offer you the opportunity to join our great empire and benefit from our advanced technology and protection." The message continued with promises of trade, technological advancement, and cultural exchange. But Walker had been in military intelligence too long to miss the hidden threat. The words "expansion zone" and "worthy species" told him everything he needed to know. He opened a secure channel to the World Council. Within minutes, the leaders of Earth's united government were connected in a virtual conference. "They're offering us protection we don't need," the council president stated, "and their ships are positioned for tactical advantage. This isn't a diplomatic mission, it's a show of force." "Agreed," Walker said. "Their technology is advanced, but our sensors show it's comparable to our own. They're expecting to find a primitive civilization." The council discussed the situation briefly. 2 centuries of unity had taught humanity valuable lessons about power and freedom. They had sworn never to repeat the mistakes of their colonial past. "Send no response," the council president decided. "Let them think their transmission failed to reach us. Meanwhile, bring the defense grid to full readiness, quietly." Walker enacted the orders immediately. Throughout the solar system, quantum defense platforms powered up while remaining undetectable. Earth's cities continued their normal activities, showing no signs of advanced technology. To any observer, they would appear to be a moderately developed civilization, perhaps just beginning space exploration. The alien ships waited at the edge of the solar system for exactly 1 Earth day. They sent their message 3 more times. Each time, they were met with complete silence. Finally, the smallest ship in their formation began moving toward the inner system. It was likely a scout, sent to investigate why they received no response. Walker watched it approach on the holographic display. "Now we'll see how they react when they realize they're not dealing with a primitive species," he said quietly. "Maintain silent running. Let them come to us." The trap was set. Humanity's first contact with the Galactic Empire was about to teach both sides some very interesting lessons about assumptions and power. The Imperial scout ship moved closer to Mars, its sensors scanning for signs of civilization. On board, Imperial Ambassador Robert Smith felt confident. In his 30 years of bringing new worlds into the Empire, no species had ever refused membership. Some had fought, of course, but all eventually saw the benefits of Imperial rule. In the Earth Defense Command, Admiral Walker watched the scout ships approach. "They're scanning Mars base," he reported to the World Council. "Should we let them find it?" "Let them see our basic facilities," the Council President replied. But nothing more. Mars base was humanity's oldest off-world settlement, deliberately kept looking simple and outdated. Hidden beneath its basic structures lay quantum technology that could have powered a small sun. The scout ship entered Mars orbit, its scanners examining the red planet's surface. Ambassador Smith studied the readings with interest. "Primitive terraform attempts," he noted to his crew. "Basic domed structures. They're barely into their space age." His confident smile faded when the ship's sensors detected a small installation on Phobos, one of Mars' moons. The energy readings made no sense. They showed both incredible power and almost nothing at all. "Interesting," Smith muttered. He ordered the ship to move closer to Phobos. In the command center, Walker received the order he'd been waiting for. "They took the bait," he announced. "Beginning Operation History Lesson." The scout ship suddenly lost all power. Its engines died, its artificial gravity failed, and its communications went silent. Only life support remained functioning. Through the viewport, Ambassador Smith watched in shock as a hologram appeared in space before his ship. The hologram showed Earth's history, centuries of war, colonization, and imperialism. It showed how stronger nations had conquered weaker ones, how empires had risen and fallen, how millions had died in the name of progress and civilization. Then it showed humanity's turning point, the Great Unity, when Earth's nations finally understood that true strength came from cooperation, not conquest. The images showed how humans had developed their technology not to dominate others, but to protect their independence. The hologram faded, replaced by a simple text message in the Empire's own language. "We remember our history. We choose a different path. Your empire is not welcome here." Power returned to the scout ship, but only enough for basic operations. A new message appeared on their screens. "You have 1 hour to leave Mars orbit. This is your only warning." Ambassador Smith grabbed his communication console. "This is impossible. No primitive species could have this level of technology." He sent emergency signals to the Imperial fleet, but they were blocked by an invisible force. In the command center, Captain Brown monitored the scout ship's reactions. "They're trying to scan our quantum shield," she reported. "They can't understand how we're blocking their signals." "Show them," Walker ordered. For a brief moment, Earth's quantum defense grid became visible. Thousands of points of light appeared throughout the solar system, connected by lines of energy that defied normal physics. The scout ship's sensors registered power levels that exceeded the entire Imperial fleet's combined output. Then everything vanished again, leaving no trace that could be detected. Ambassador Smith sat in his captain's chair, his hands shaking slightly. In 3 decades of Imperial service, he had never encountered anything like this. These humans hadn't just rejected Imperial membership, they had demonstrated power beyond the Empire's understanding. "Return to the fleet," he ordered quietly. "Maximum speed." The scout ship turned and fled toward the outer system. As they passed Jupiter's orbit, they received one final message. "We know your Empire's true nature. We have seen how you protect other worlds. Earth will not be conquered. Earth will not be colonized. Earth will not join your empire. Do not return." In the command center, Walker watched the scout ships retreat. "They'll be back," he said, "but next time they'll know what they're dealing with." "Was it wise to show them so much?" Captain Brown asked. Walker nodded. "Sometimes the best defense is letting your opponent know exactly how strong you are." They thought they were dealing with children playing with sticks. Now they know they're facing equals who simply aren't interested in their offer. The World Council President's voice came over the comm. "Well done, Admiral. Now we prepare for their real response. They won't take this rejection lightly." "No," Walker agreed. "They won't. But Earth will be ready." Commander Thomas Gray stood at the bridge of the Imperial flagship, Star Sovereign, watching Earth through the main viewport. The blue planet looked peaceful, almost primitive from this distance. But Gray knew better. After the scout ship incident, the Empire had sent him, their best negotiator, to handle this unusual situation. "They've detected us," his sensor officer reported, "but still no response to our communications." Gray nodded calmly. In 20 years of bringing new worlds into the Empire, he had never failed. His secret was simple. He studied his opponents carefully. For the past week, he had watched Earth's broadcasts, analyzed their culture, and learned their true strength. "Launch the diplomatic shuttle," he ordered. "No weapons, no escorts. Just me." His officers looked worried. "Sir, after what they did to the scout ship." "They won't harm a lone diplomat," Gray interrupted. "They've shown us they're powerful. Now they'll show us they're civilized." The shuttle departed the flagship, moving slowly toward Earth. As it passed the moon, Gray noticed something interesting. There were no visible defenses, no weapon installations, nothing that showed Earth's true power. Yet he knew they were watching his every move. In the Earth Defense Command, Admiral Walker received the shuttle's approach vector. "Single occupant," Captain Brown reported. "No weapons. He's making himself vulnerable on purpose." "Clever," Walker admitted. "He's showing trust to earn trust. Let him land at the Singapore spaceport." The shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, guided by invisible quantum beacons. Gray looked out his window, studying the city below. Singapore was a marvel of modern architecture, but not too advanced, exactly what you'd expect from a developing civilization. As he landed, he noticed something else. People walked the streets normally. No panic, no military presence, no signs that humanity was facing its first alien contact. Either humans were incredibly brave or incredibly confident. A small welcoming committee waited at the spaceport, just 3 people. Admiral Walker stood in the center, flanked by Captain Brown and the World Council President. No guards, no weapons, no show of force. Gray stepped out of his shuttle and bowed slightly. "I am Commander Thomas Gray, Chief Negotiator of the Galactic Empire." "Welcome to Earth," the Council President replied simply, "though I believe we already declined your Empire's invitation." Gray smiled diplomatically. "Sometimes initial responses are based on incomplete information. I'm here to ensure you understand all the benefits the Empire offers." "Please follow us," Walker said, leading them to a nearby building. Inside, they entered a plain conference room with a single table and 4 chairs. Gray noticed there were no computers, no displays, no visible technology at all. Yet somehow, he felt like the whole room was watching him. "Before you begin your presentation," the Council President said, "let us show you something." The air around them shimmed, and suddenly they weren't in the conference room anymore. They stood in space, watching Earth's history unfold around them. Gray saw ancient empires rise and fall, watched world wars tear nations apart, witnessed humanity's darkest moments and greatest triumphs. "We know about empires," Walker explained as they watched. "We know how they work, how they offer protection while taking freedom, how they promise progress while demanding obedience." The scene changed to show the Imperial fleet, but not as it appeared now. Gray saw his ships through Earth's quantum sensors. He saw every weakness, every vulnerability, every flaw in their design. "Your empire has ruled for 10,000 years, Captain Brown added. In that time, we humans nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times. But we learned from each failure. We grew stronger by staying independent. The illusion faded, and they were back in the conference room. Gray sat silent for a moment, processing what he'd seen. "You understand," he said finally, "that the Empire cannot accept rejection." "You understand," Walker replied, "that Earth cannot accept submission." Gray stood slowly. For the first time in his career, he knew he had failed before even starting. These humans didn't need convincing. They had already made their choice long ago. "The Empire will not take this lightly," he warned. The council president smiled. "We know. That's why we're showing you all this now, so you can tell your leaders exactly what they're facing." Gray nodded once and turned to leave. As he walked back to his shuttle, he realized something that would shake the Empire to its core. Earth wasn't refusing to join because they were afraid. They were refusing because they were strong enough to say no. Admiral Walker stood in a secret room deep beneath the Antarctic ice. Around him, quantum computers processed data stolen from Imperial ships. What they revealed made his blood run cold. "Display case file 47, he ordered. The air filled with holographic images of different alien worlds. Each one showed the same pattern. First contact, diplomatic talks, then sudden surrender. But something wasn't right about these surrenders. Captain Brown entered the room, holding a data crystal. "Sir, we've decoded more of their secure transmissions. You need to see this." The new data played in the air before them. It showed Imperial ships attacking peaceful worlds that had refused to join. But these weren't ordinary attacks. The Empire used something called compliance waves, signals that turned the population against itself. They'd done this to over 300 civilizations, Brown reported. They make it look like each world chooses to join, but it's all fake. They break their minds, then rebuild them as loyal Imperial citizens. Walker's fists clenched, and the worlds that truly submit never know the truth. They think they're joining a peaceful alliance. By the time they learn otherwise, it's too late. At that moment, an alert flashed across the room. The quantum sensors had detected unusual activity in the Imperial fleet. Walker and Brown rushed to the main command center, where other officers were already analyzing the data. "They're preparing their compliance wave generators," an analyst reported. "But something's different. The power readings are off the charts. They've never used this much power before." Walker opened a channel to the World Council. "Madam President, we have confirmation. The Empire isn't just collecting worlds. They're enslaving them. And they're preparing to try it on Earth." The President's hologram appeared in the center of the room. "Can we stop these compliance waves?" "Better than that," Brown interrupted, pulling up new data. "Our quantum shields don't just block them. They can reflect them back. If they attack us this way, their own fleet would be affected." Walker finished. "But we can't let them know we've discovered this." "Not yet." The President nodded. "Prepare our defenses, but keep them hidden. Let's see exactly what they try first." Over the next few hours, Walker watched as more data poured in. The quantum computers had broken deeper into the Empire's networks, revealing centuries of conquest disguised as peaceful expansion. Worlds that thought they had joined a benevolent alliance were actually under deep mental control. "Look at this," Brown said, pointing to new information. "Some of their own citizens are starting to break free. The control isn't perfect. That's why they keep upgrading the compliance waves, to maintain control over their own people." Walker studied the data carefully. "So the Empire isn't just our enemy. It's holding its own people prisoner too. They probably don't even remember what freedom feels like anymore." In orbit, the Imperial fleet continued to grow. More ships arrived every hour, carrying weapons that could break the will of entire civilizations. They thought they were preparing to liberate Earth from its isolation. They didn't know they were about to face something they'd never encountered before, a world that could turn their greatest weapon against them. "Send a message to all Earth defense stations," Walker ordered. "But use the old radio systems, nothing quantum. Let the Empire think we're still primitive. The message went out. Prepare for defense pattern Omega. Let them fire first. In the Antarctic Command Center, Walker watched the Empire's fleet grow larger. But for the first time since they arrived, he felt hope instead of worry. Earth wasn't just fighting for itself anymore. It was fighting for every world the Empire had enslaved. They think they're going to break our minds, he said quietly. Instead, we're going to free theirs. Captain Brown looked at the fleet readings again. Sir, do you think they'll ever forgive themselves when they realize what they've been doing to other worlds? That's not our problem, Walker replied. Our job is to give them the chance to find out. Freedom isn't just about making choices, it's about being able to face the choices you've made. Above them, the Imperial fleet moved into attack position, ready to save Earth from its independence. They didn't know they were about to free themselves instead. 1,000 Imperial ships filled Earth's sky, their metal hulls blocking out the stars. On the bridge of the Imperial command ship, Fleet Admiral John Stone prepared to make history. No civilization had ever resisted the Empire's compliance waves. Earth would be no different. All ships in position, his tactical officer reported. Compliance wave generators at maximum power. Stone smiled coldly. Begin the liberation of Earth. In the Antarctic Command Center, Admiral Walker watched the energy readings spike. They're powering up their weapons, he announced to the World Council. All stations, prepare for pattern Omega. Remember, let them fire first. The Imperial fleet glowed with power. Energy gathered between their ships, forming a web of light that would break Earth's resistance. Stone watched with satisfaction as the compliance wave built up to levels never before attempted. Fire, he commanded. The wave of energy swept toward Earth like a tsunami of light. It passed through the atmosphere, reaching for the minds of every human being on the planet. Stone waited for the familiar signs of surrender, the confused signals, the sudden acceptance of Imperial rule. Nothing happened. Status report, he demanded. Sir, the wave, it's hitting something. Some kind of shield we can't see. Around Earth, the quantum shield became visible for a brief moment. It caught the compliance wave like a net catching water. But instead of blocking it, the shield began to glow with a strange energy. In the command center, Walker gave the order they'd been waiting for. Activate the quantum mirrors. Send it back. The shield changed shape, transforming into 1,000 points of light, each point aimed at a different Imperial ship. Before Stone could react, Earth's defense grid redirected the compliance wave back at the fleet. The effect was instant. Imperial crews stumbled as their own weapon hit them. But something was different. Instead of forcing compliance, the quantum shields had changed the wave's frequency. Now it was breaking the Empire's mental controls instead of creating them. Status report, Walker called out. Captain Brown studied the readings. It's working, sir. The quantum mirrors are breaking their conditioning. They're remembering who they were before the Empire controlled them. On the Imperial command ship, Stone watched in horror as his crew began to wake up. Officers looked around in confusion, then shock, then growing anger as they remembered how the Empire had controlled them. Sir, his tactical officer said, voice shaking, what have we been doing? All those worlds we conquered. Emergency transmission from Imperial Command, another officer reported. The wave, it's spreading through the entire Empire. Everyone is waking up. Stone slumped in his chair as his own memories returned. He remembered being a young officer, believing in peace and cooperation. He remembered the day they used the compliance wave on his own fleet. Tears ran down his face as he realized what they had become. In the Antarctic base, Walker received transmissions from across the Imperial fleet. Ships were standing down. Crews were breaking free from centuries of control. The Empire's greatest weapon had become the tool of its own liberation. Message from the Imperial command ship, Brown reported. Admiral Stone is requesting permission to land. He wants to apologize. Walker looked at the World Council President's hologram. She nodded slowly. Tell him he can land, Walker ordered. But first, have him send this message to his fleet. Earth accepts your surrender, but not your submission. You're free now. What you do with that freedom is up to you. Above them, the Imperial ships began to power down their weapons. Some began to turn back, heading home to free their own worlds. Others stayed in orbit, their crews trying to understand their newfound freedom. Captain Brown watched the sensor readings with amazement. "Sir, do you think they'll be able to handle freedom after so long under control?" Walker smiled. "That's the thing about freedom, Captain. It's not about being perfect. It's about having the right to learn from your own mistakes." He looked at the ships above. They have a lot of mistakes to make up for, but at least now they have the choice. The sun rose over Earth, shining on a fleet that had come to conquer and instead found liberation. Humanity's greatest victory wasn't defeating the Empire. It was freeing it from itself. News spread across the galaxy faster than light. On 300 worlds, people woke up from the Empire's control. Some reacted with anger, others with confusion, but all of them wanted answers. Admiral Walker stood in the Singapore spaceport, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. Each carried leaders from different worlds, all coming to the planet that had freed them from mental slavery. Another delegation arriving from the Centauri systems, Captain Brown reported. That makes 57 worlds represented so far. The latest ship landed smoothly, its design unlike anything Earth had seen before. Its crew walked out wearing clothes that had been forbidden under Imperial rule, speaking languages that had been banned for centuries. In the main conference hall, the World Council President addressed the growing crowd of alien representatives. Behind her, screens showed more delegates attending through quantum communications. "Earth doesn't want to control you," she explained. "We don't want to build a new empire. We just want to help you regain what was taken from you." A delegate stood up, his scales shimmering in the light. "But how can we defend ourselves? The Imperial ships still control most of the trade routes." Walker stepped forward. "We'll share our quantum shield technology with any world that wants to remain free. Not as a payment, not as a deal, but because freedom means nothing if you can't protect it." In orbit, Earth's quantum technicians were already teaching former Imperial crews how to convert their compliance wave generators into defensive shields. Some ships had begun carrying this knowledge to other worlds, spreading protection instead of control. "Message from the Orient sectors," Brown announced, reading from her datapad. 3 more worlds have declared independence. They're requesting technical advisors to help build their defense systems. Walker nodded. "Send them what they need. But remember, we advise, we don't control. Let them build their own systems their own way." The revolution wasn't always peaceful. On some worlds, Imperial loyalists who had lived too long under the compliance waves tried to restore the old order. But they found their weapons useless against quantum shields, their control systems powerless against freed minds. In the conference hall, another delegate spoke up. "The Empire took more than our freedom. They took our culture, our history, our identity. How do we get that back?" The council president smiled. "Look around this room. Every person here represents a unique world, a unique way of life. Share your stories. Learn from each other. That's what real civilization looks like. Not control, but cooperation." Walker watched as delegates began to talk among themselves, sharing histories that had been forbidden for generations. Some cried as they remembered languages they hadn't spoken in years. Others laughed as they rediscovered customs they had been forced to forget. "Sir," Brown said quietly, showing him her datapad, "the quantum network is picking up something strange. The compliance wave. It's still echoing through Imperial space, but it's changing." Walker studied the readings. The wave they had reflected back at the Empire wasn't just freeing minds, it was breaking down the barriers between worlds. People who had been enemies under Imperial rule were remembering ancient friendships. Trade routes that had been controlled by the Empire were opening to free commerce. They're not just recovering, he realized. They're rebuilding. And they're doing it their way. In the conference hall, delegates were now discussing a new proposal. Not a new empire, not even a formal alliance. Instead, they wanted to create something Earth had suggested: a free worlds network. Each world would remain independent, but all would share knowledge, resources, and defense technology. It's spreading faster than we expected, Brown said, checking the latest reports. 15 more worlds just announced their independence. The Empire's trying to stop the news from spreading, but they can't control their communication networks anymore. Walker watched as more ships arrived in orbit, each carrying people eager to learn how to defend their newfound freedom. Earth had done more than just resist an empire. It had shown the galaxy a different way to live. Freedom is like a light, he said quietly. All you have to do is show people it exists. They'll find their own way to it. 1 year after Earth's stand against the Empire, the galaxy had changed forever. The Imperial Palace on the capital world stood empty, its halls now a museum showing the cost of forced unity. In its place, a new building rose, the Hall of Free Worlds, built by 100 different species working together. Admiral Walker walked through this new hall, looking at the flags of independent worlds hanging from its crystal ceiling. Each flag told a story of freedom regained, of cultures reborn from the ashes of imperial control. Final report from the outer systems, Captain Brown said, joining him. The last imperial holdouts have surrendered. Their compliance wave generators have all been converted to defense shields. Walker nodded. The Empire hadn't gone quietly. Some worlds, too long under control, had fought to keep their chains. But without the compliance waves, they couldn't force their will on others anymore. And the Free Worlds Alliance? He asked. Growing stronger every day. 287 worlds have joined so far. All voluntary, all independent. Brown smiled. They're calling it the greatest peace movement in galaxy history. They entered the main chamber where the Alliance Council was meeting. Unlike the old Imperial Senate, there was no grand throne, no symbols of power, just a simple round table where representatives from every world could speak as equals. The World Council President represented Earth at this table. She stood to address the gathering as Walker and Brown found their seats. 1 year ago, she began. Earth stood alone against an empire that had ruled for 10,000 years. We stood not because we wanted to fight, but because we remembered what freedom meant. Today, we stand together, not as rulers and subjects, but as friends and allies. On the massive screens around the chamber, images showed the changes spreading across the galaxy. Old Imperial warships now carried teachers and traders between stars. Quantum shields protected worlds not from conquest, but from those who might try to control them again. Message from the Beta Sector, Brown whispered, checking her datapad. They finished converting the last compliance wave station into a quantum communication hub. The entire galaxy is now connected to the free network. Walker watched as representatives from different worlds shared their stories. Some had fought against the Empire in secret for centuries. Others had been so deeply controlled they were still relearning their own histories. But all of them had chosen to be here. The Empire taught us that unity comes from control, the President continued. Earth showed us that true unity comes from choice. We choose to work together. We choose to help each other. We choose to remain free. A delegate from a distant world stood up. Their people had been among the first the Empire had conquered 10,000 years ago. But what stops this alliance from becoming another empire? They asked. What stops the strong from controlling the weak? Walker stood to answer this one. Look above you, he said, pointing to the crystal ceiling. Through it, they could see Earth's greatest gift to the alliance, a network of quantum satellites surrounding every member world. These shields don't just protect you from outside control, he explained. They protect you from each other. No world in this alliance can force its will on another. No one can take away your choice to be free. The chamber erupted in applause. This was what Earth had really given them, not just freedom from the Empire, but freedom from Empire itself. The very idea of controlling other worlds had become impossible. As the meeting continued, Brown showed Walker the latest reports. Trade between free worlds had reached all-time highs. Cultural exchange programs were helping worlds rediscover their lost heritage. And most importantly, worlds that had been enemies under imperial rule were becoming allies by choice. Did you ever think that saying no to the Empire would lead to all this? Brown asked. Walker looked around the chamber, at faces filled with hope instead of fear. Sometimes, he said, the most powerful thing you can do is show people they have a choice. Above them, Earth's sun shone through the crystal ceiling, its light reflecting off 1,000 flags. Each one represented not just a free world, but a choice, the choice to stand together, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. The Empire had tried to force the galaxy to unite. Earth had shown it how to unite freely. And in the end, that had made all the difference.